hello to the vlog, hello to IGTV. This week it's just me, no James Hazel. Radio Suffolk's news took over, or the news items in the UK took over the Gadget Man slot this week. So it's just me this week, and this will be going out via YouTube, IGTV and thegadgetman.org.uk. Okay, there's another news story popped up on my phone. Anyway, so this week I'm going to be talking about three stories. The first of the stories is the cancellation of MWC 2020, which is the Mobile World Congress. This is normally the gathering that happens every year, which has notable phone makers, chip makers, who will be showing their latest devices. And this year Sony were due to present us with their latest device, and that's now being postponed to a YouTube press release or press conference. And this is all to do with the fact that the large companies, exhibitors, have been pulling out over the last week, and it's to do with coronavirus and fears, health fears and things like that, and not being part of, perhaps with a large gathering of people from all different parts of the world, being part of, spreading the virus. So GSM Association said it's impossible for the event to go ahead, which would have gone ahead in Barcelona on the 24th to the 27th of February. So that's no longer going ahead. BT, Facebook, LG, Nokia, Sony, Vodafone were all high profile exhibitors that have pulled out, along with Amazon, LG, Ericsson, Facebook, Nvidia and Intel. They all pulled out. I mean, if there's nobody left to come and exhibit, then it's pointless having it anyway. But it's not a bad idea, really, just for safety's sake. And of course, it would provide very negative publicity if something did happen. So that's no longer going ahead, and everything will be pushed to online presentations and things like that. What have we got here? Circ Industry and Alan Spenwood from CCS Insight Consultancy said the GSM had been a victim of circumstances out of its control. It's a huge disappointment. The show will not go ahead this year. The impact on small companies who have invested a disproportionate amount of their budgets and time on this event should not be underestimated. MWC is an anchor event for many, and now they face the challenge of having to figure out the best way to salvage something from a very difficult situation. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but you can understand the reasons behind cancelling it. So we'll wait and see whether that's rescheduled for another time, or whether or not that is it for this year. I should imagine the amount of organisation that it goes into that event, that it will probably be cancelled. So the second story that I'm featuring is the very public launch of the four devices by Samsung, the Samsung Galaxy S20 and the Galaxy Z Flip, or if you're in the UK, the Z Flip. So it's launched three models of its Galaxy S20, which has different price ranges. Let's just see, the Galaxy Z Flip is particularly interesting because it's a flip phone. We've already seen one this year, a flip phone this year from Motorola, the launch of the Razr, or relaunch of the Razr, which is a very interesting device, quite pricey as these devices are. Over the years we've seen the price of devices increase substantially, and this, because of the amount of expensive technology inside these devices now, the prices are just beginning to rocket. Different camera capabilities on the S20 range, the high-end S20 Ultra, which has got a 6.9-inch screen, an enormous display. I mean, this is like tablet-sized, but because of the bezels or lack of bezels around them, it's still something you can hold in your hand, which is quite amazing. Yeah, the S20 Ultra has a telephoto lens with 48 megapixel camera but with a wide angle lens of 108 megapixels, which is lunacy. I think they use a thing called pixel binning on these kind of devices, so there's such an enormous amount of information in an image that they can actually bin pixels and find the better pixels of each image or each frame and use them, and then you get much better low light quality as well as high quality images. There is a limit to the size of images, and sometimes these very high megapixel sensors they may not be quite so good as lower megapixel because the sensor size or the sensor pixels on the sensor aren't as big. But apparently that isn't the case, that with this particular device that they have actually got very good sensor on them, and also enormously high megapixel. I think it's 10 times optical zoom with 100 times assisted zoom. So it's using a combination of digital and optical to get 100 times zoom, which again is an incredible amount. Super resolution they call it, which as ever uses machine learning techniques to stitch pixels together from 20 different frames to achieve a better result than would be possible via a simple digital zoom. It also can record in 8K. I think we spoke last week about the new phones coming along now, which now record in 8K, and it will record in 8K, which is 4 times more than 4K and 16 times more than HD, so it's very high resolution. But again, what that means is you can do a lot of cropping and you can zoom in and into those sort of kind of videos if you want to use them. So again, this is what we're seeing is sensors, the phones with these incredible sensors on them. The also has very large battery, I think 5,000 milliamp hour battery, I believe. I could be wrong. And it supports 5G, which is still a new technology, but very interesting that these phones are now out of the box supporting it with all of that technology. In the S series, the prices you're looking at, what, £1,199 for the base S20 model, which comes with, I believe, 128 gig of memory and 128 gig of storage and 8 to 8 gig of memory. But I think you get the higher memory if you go for a 512 sized, as 512 storage version of that, which is going to be even more expensive. I haven't got the prices for all of them. The S20 Plus is 6.7 inch, so slightly smaller screen, slightly smaller sensor, but it's got a depth sensor, which is called a time of flight, which can be used for giving 3D effects. You might have seen on some images on Facebook where you can have these kind of 3D effects. So it's time of flight, so it measures the time that light takes to leave the phone and bounce back again, and then it can effectively measure where things are in 3D space, I think. That's £999 as a starting price, and then there's the base model, which is 6.2 inch, 3 rear cameras, 64 megapixel telephoto, 12 megapixel wide and 12 megapixel ultra wide, so slightly lower spec, or quite a lot lower spec cameras on those, but still, you know, the Galaxy models are really, really nice. Now, along with those 3 high-end S series, we've also got the Z Flip, which is this foldable phone, a bit like the Motorola I spoke about earlier. So it's a foldable, so it's effectively half the size of a standard phone, unfolds into a full-sized phone with, I believe there's a slight crease you can see along the screen, obviously where it's opening, but I haven't seen one myself. Apparently they're very nice. They use, you know, the same real technology as a standard Galaxy phone. I don't think it has 5G on board because that would have made it slightly too thick at the moment. But there's, yeah, some 4 really nice mobile phones been announced this week, which will be launched in the next few weeks. They're doing kind of reservation pre-orders. There's one option on the Z Flip which you can actually fold it half up and kind of use it as a selfie camera, but sitting on your desk, which a bit like a laptop but smaller. That sounds quite a nice little neat idea. But as with all these mobile phone companies, all the mobile phone companies are trying to look for something original and new. So this is what we get with the Z Flip. They've kind of seen what Motorola might have done and thought, actually, yeah, we can do something similar to that, or maybe we can do something better. But yeah, it's good, and perhaps will be a more successful publicity for it than the Galaxy Fold, which had a bit of a mess to start off with people pulling screen protectors off and stuff like that when they shouldn't have done. So that's that story. And the final story that I'm going to talk about today is the new powers that have been given to Ofcom in the UK, who are the regulator for the communications industry. So they regulate the companies that supply internet. So if you want to supply internet, you want to supply mobile phones, you want to supply landline phones, broadband, any of those kind of communication services, you have to be licensed through Ofcom. And Ofcom now are going to have more powers over social media companies. And their new powers are so they can force social media firms to act over harmful content that's published on their sites. So it's a way of, I don't know how it's going to be enforced, and it's unclear what penalties Ofcom can impose on these companies, but it's basically to target violence, cyberbullying and child abuse. Obviously, very important. Those kind of things aren't publicly available and really aren't on the internet at all. But this basically, it's to make the social media companies that are allowing this information to be published, unwittingly most of the time, to move quickly, so that where you have unpleasant things on there, which there was one story which was a girl who took her life after viewing content on Instagram, allegedly, and had she not had access to that information, then she may not have gone ahead and done so, because she wouldn't have the information, wouldn't have the knowledge to do so. So yeah, there needs to be, I guess, a method of being able to report content which is unacceptable, and for these companies to act upon it swiftly so that it's not sitting around forever. I personally have reported stuff in the past that I found abhorrent to social media companies, and then they've turned around and said, no, it doesn't break our terms. And I think, huh? So yeah, there does need to be some kind of way of users and the people at Ofcom to be able to try and fight for us to get this information removed where it is unacceptable. This came about from a consultation called the Online Harms Consultation, which received 2,500 replies. And the new rules will apply to firms hosting user-generated content, including comments, forums and video sharing. This is likely to include Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube and TikTok. The intention is that government sets the direction of the policy but gives Ofcom the freedom to draw up and adapt the details by doing this. The watchdog should have the ability to tackle new online threats as they emerge without the need for further legislation. And they'll be publishing a full response in the spring. NXPCC, which is a children's charity, the main children's charity in the UK, welcomed the news. They said, too many times social media companies have said, we don't like the idea of children being abused on our sites, we'll do something, leave it to us. 13 self-regulatory attempts to keep children safe online have failed. Statutory regulation is essential. So I think the feeling is that these companies have been given the opportunity to do something about the content that's being put on these sites, and the general feeling from this consultation is that it hasn't been enough. So yeah, it's good. I mean, it's going to be regulating access in the UK, or sites in the UK. It's very complicated, as you can imagine, because you have sites being hosted all around the world, and compelling them to do something is going to be difficult when they're outside of our laws and regulations. But yeah, I think that it's a good start, and I look forward to it, because it's very important that we are safe, and especially our children are safe online. So it's all good stuff. So that's the third story. That was kind of what I was going to cover this morning on Radio Suffolk. So I've covered it here now. I'll be back again next week. I'll be posting other reviews and technology stuff on thegadgetman.org.uk, or if you can't remember that, you can go to gman.ga will get you to the Gadget Man website as well. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any comments, if anything you'd like to comment on this vlog, then I'd really be appreciated. If you're hearing it on the podcast, again, I'd be really interested to get some feedback, because then I know if I'm doing something well or not so well. So thanks for tuning in or viewing, and I'll see you soon.